everyone, saying hello. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for joining us at the Black Farmers Roundtable, Take Two, the Education Edition. I'm so excited to introduce our amazing panelists and really just get started to talk about the importance of agriculture and urban agriculture, but also touch on that in education, and that importance of what that means with our youth and taking care of our communities, through the next generation. We talked a little bit about that last time, but this time I really wanted to get a powerhouse of women educators together, Black women, Black and brown women doing the amazing things with our youth and with our families. So I want to first kick things off and say, my name is Adrienne Wilson. I will be your host today. My company is Feed Our Soul, and what we do is we nurture and encourage our communities to inspire them to grow and cook their own produce. There's a connection there that I find that we don't have, is where we need to learn how to cook the produce that we grow. Everyone wants to grow food, but there's a bridge in order to connecting how to cook that food in a healthy and sustainable way, right? And so that's what Feed Our Soul focuses on. But I want to jump in also to our amazing panelists. I'm going to do a quick screen share so that everyone can see all of your amazing information. Here we go. All right. So we can start off with Gigi. This is me, Adrienne Wilson, again. You Feed Our Soul information. And Gigi, why don't you tell me and get us started off about what you do? Tell us about Hawkins Greens and how you got started.
Okay, my name is Gigi Casey, and I have started a garden along with some other great people at Augustus Hawkins High School in South Central. We're a pilot school, and so we can kind of have a lot of freedom with the kinds of programming and the kinds of events that we can do at the school. So we have 9th through 12th grades. We are 3 small schools on one campus, and our garden is a little over a year old.
Yes, and you're growing such amazing things in there, and teaching the kids at Hawkins so many things. But we'll get into that as well as, we talk about our relationship and other things that we can do here in the community. But thank you so much. Welcome, Gigi. We also have Sheila Grantham. She is going to join us soon, quickly, but her organization is Adventures to Dreams. What they do is they teach youth that are out of housing or in foster care or in low-income housing, to help them not only how to gardening, through dance, through expression, through art, teaching them how to dream big, but also, know that the sky is the limit, and that they are helped with entrepreneurial skills as well. So Sheila Grantham, she is amazing. Check her out, Adventures to Dreams, and she'll be with us shortly. And then let's pass it on to Alexys Romo of A Black Thumb Farm. Please welcome Alexys. Tell us how you started Black Thumb Farm. What was your goal and purpose, and why are you joining us today?
Wow. Okay, cool. Thank you. Hi, I'm Alexys Romo. I am the founder of Black Thumb Farm, and Black Thumb Farm has been it was a super long-term dream of mine. I was the program director for Enrich LA for years, which is a school garden organization, and they're everywhere. And I just found that I really wanted to have this huge bridge between not just the garden, but letting the garden be a place where all things that the community needed could come from. So Black Thumb Farm was founded, and it really is all about equipping and empowering young people. We work with ages 14 to 21, and we specifically work with, we are inclusive, but we definitely hone in on working with students that are Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And yeah, we love to equip them with tools and resources. We want to make sure that all of them leave our program with a skill set, but we also provide all kinds of other things to them so they can be ready for real life. So we have workshops where we teach them how to make a resume. We talk to them about budgeting. We have people come in and teach them about small businesses. And so they really do understand like how to farm and garden and how to grow food. So they have this like skill set, as well as like, and here's how to function so that you can, whatever you do, you can become successful. So we really want to offer like as many resources as we can to them. But our primary focus is making sure like we equip them with a true skill set so they can be farmers and make money doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, and that is something that, I want to touch on, later, is about, the importance of knowing that agriculture really can be a profitable investment, and a career, for not only our people, but only to help all people to know that there's so many ways how you can make money and so many ways that you can contribute to the earth. And, through the traditional jobs, it doesn't have to be the case.
Totally.
So yeah. Well, so great. Thank you for joining us again. I really appreciate everyone taking the time. So let's jump into it. I'm really excited to get things started, but I want to ask you, why did you decide to become an educator? Specifically, like, what is the importance of education to you in your life? And also, why did you choose farming and gardening as your medium, to express education? Let's start with Gigi. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think education is a great track to many things in life. And we are in the middle of a food desert. And so I think the main thing we wanted our students to know is that they did have agency, and that through the garden and the entrepreneurship that we bring, that we could change our conditions here in South Central. One of the teachers asked a class, "What's good about your community?" And they laughed and said nothing. And so I knew that that was something that we had to change. And so a garden is a good gathering place, and we invite community in, so we have access and exposure, and it's just a good way to impact not only the community, but a lot of our families are intergenerational, and so it's just a wide reach.
Yes. I completely agree. In so many ways, how that we have to impact our communities as a whole. Not just what we're trying to do or what we think is best, but really thinking a collective mindset, really a universal mind, so that we all can prosper, and through education, whether you're old or young, no matter what age you are, you can still learn. I think that's the importance, and also the beauty of gardening, because you can learn it at any age, and you can learn it, in almost pretty much any environment, and recognizing that we do live in a food desert, right? And having people understand what that means in terms of controlling our environment, and not giving us that access to fresh produce, what that really does to our minds, in terms of being able to explore and be productive and want to learn more. So yes, I am with you. I agree. What about you, Alexys? How do you feel?
I do not feel like I chose to be an educator. I just feel like I feel ambushed by it most of the time. Both my parents are teachers, and my stepmom is a social worker, and all of us were like, we will never go into education. And I'm one of 7, and 6 of us are in education. It's a problem. It just is like, it's in our genes at this point, So as far as like farming and gardening goes, I literally graduated school and started working in a school the year after. So I have never stepped away from education. I just went from being educated to going into teaching. And as I started farming and gardening, I think my farming and gardening journey started in Southeast Asia. And when I came back to the US, I was just appalled at like the lack of food education we have here, and the lack of accessibility, and the amount of resources we have. And I was 19, and I feel like it just shook me. So I think going into education for me personally at the start was like, just seemed like the only option. It was like, I'm not going to go and teach like grown people how to do things when they've already made up their mind they hate the environment. But now that I've like worked a little, and grown up, I've learned, oh no, education, first of all, you can educate anybody at any age. And also I think education is the platform where you can reach the most people. That's kind of what I've seen. I think that there are a few organizations and companies that are doing things outside of the school system and education, which we're not in a school, specifically just because I didn't want to work around LAUSD red tape anymore, just to be honest. But I think for the most part, the way that you can really reach a lot of people and reach them directly and give them the hands-on resources is through education. That is, I think, the way to reach the masses. So as much as I want to run away from education and just like, I want to live on a farm, it's never going to happen. I think I'm going to always be an educator.
I love that. Don't we all wish we could just live on a farm?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think schools are a good hub. I mean, you'd have to agree, especially during COVID, we're finding that there are hub resources.
Totally.
To be able to have access to meals. And then what we were doing in the garden is really hopefully teaching people how to have gardens at home, so that this was pre-COVID, so that in times like this, you know, that we have some options.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, well, you know, there's so many reasons why we can do this. And, you know, so as we talk more about education, right, and how gardening really contributes to that, right, because there's a level of nutrition and there's a level of health in there, right, and how do we teach our communities how to be healthy, right? How do we define health? You know, how do we change that? Because, you know, in our communities, you know, good comfort food is considered super cheesy, super greasy, super meat heavy, and, you know, not really including a lot of vegetables. So what is the importance of teaching nutrition and health, you know, and using gardening in that sense? You know, Alexys, I'll pass it to you this time.
Yeah, I think that it's vital. I think, you know, specifically in our community, the amount of things that threaten us, so many of them start in our bodies. And so nutrition is like, it is imperative that we teach nutrition, but I also think that it's vital that we talk to them about the histories of our foods and our food systems, because I think they go hand in hand with the nutrition. I think when I think about, like, my husband is Mexican, and when I think about the way that, like, his family eats, like, traditional Mexican foods, they eat tons of fruits and vegetables. They grow tons of their own fruits and vegetables. They are very connected to the land, because traditionally where they're from, people are connected to the land. But there has been a translation of, like, becoming kind of Americanized in the diets that we have and acclimating all kinds of things that impact nutrition. So I think it's, oh, here comes Sheila. I think it's vital that we talk to them about how these foods affect them, and beyond just, you know, taste good or make you feel good. Like how we talk about like lifelong diseases that can affect you, how we talk about reclaiming your own health. You know, in our vision statement for Black Thumb Farm, it is to equip and empower young people to take back their own health. And I think it's a form of, like, fighting the oppressor. You know, if you are being oppressed and you can claim that I'm going to take care of my own family, of my own body, of my own community, and that starts with nutrition and food and caring for yourself, then I think, you know, that's really the way up, in my opinion. And that's kind of what we've seen with Black Thumb Farm, is like it's empowering for people to feel like they can take care of their own bodies, and that they understand the importance of nutrition. It is empowering to them. So
yes, you know, I agree, just on so many levels in that space, where you have to let them know what I mean about environment, right? And controlling what is immediately around you, what do you immediately have access to.
Totally.
And when you do have really seen that process, and I've seen this, you know, working with Gigi in her farm at Hawkins, you know, when you see a student, you know, plant something and then watch it from seed, you know, to sprout, and sprout for them to flower, and then for it to become an actual vegetable, and then to cut that vegetable and eat it and ingest it. There is something so empowering about that, you know, and letting them know that, you know, not all of everything around you, you know, is out of your control or out of your reach. You know, you can do anything you put your mind to. If you can do it here, then you can do it anywhere, you know. You know, and that inspiration is what is what is really important. But yes, thank you so much. And I want to welcome in Sheila. Sheila, can you hear us? I think we can hear you. I want to welcome, let you have a chance to introduce yourself and jump in on the conversation here.
Great. So basically, I'm the founder and director of Adventures to Dreams Enrichment. It is in downtown Long Beach, so it'll be the first district. And this community, this particular area needs a lot of help with nutrition and getting fresh fruits and vegetables to them. So our adventure kids actually plant the seeds and grow the food, and they take it home to their family. So we don't use seedlings simply because we talk to them about the process and what happens once you plant the seed, the formation it goes through to grow into that particular vegetable or fruit. So they actually like that better because they're able to really see for themselves, what happened once they plant the seed.
Amazing. And why did you choose to become an educator?
I've always been an educator. It was just a dream of mine. Actually, when I was growing up, I had a first grade teacher, and I just thought she was awesome. And I said, I just want to be a teacher. And I stood true to that. So how I got the idea about Adventures to Dreams, I was basically teaching in the projects in LA, the Imperial Courts projects. And a little boy at the time spoke to me and said the dangers of living on the projects and how they did nothing on the weekends but stay inside. And I just thought that was a little crazy. So I came home and I said, I need to do something. So I called my daughter and I told her, I said, Mom needs to do something. I need to help these kids. They need to get out of that environment on the weekends. So the parents trusted me, and I got some of my friends, and one Saturday a month we go pick all of them up and start taking them to museums. And that was in 2015. And by 2016, I wanted to widen my vision. And I said, I'm going to start gardening. And so my friend at the time, she was saying, are you kidding me? Those kids aren't interested in gardening. I said, oh, you never know. And the rest is history because they love it.
Yeah, they really do. They really do love it. There's something, I don't know if it's because they can't, if it's not, shown that much, in our schools, but, once you really do get a child, working with their hands and working with the dirt and, kind of feeling the earth, there is something that wakes up in them, and they really, really do love it. I think it's such a beautiful thing. Gigi, so I wanted to pass it off to you and say, what do you think the importance of, teaching nutrition and health are, as we hone in on why we are starting to garden and what is that key.
Listen in. I was supposed to forward her.
Oh, okay. In here. So I think that at high school, we're already seeing signs at our school of kids that are undergoing health concerns and health issues like high blood pressure, diabetes, and things like that, stress, anxiety, all of those things. And so it's just a good time to really get a handle on those things before they advance. And so to be able to have a garden, which is like a living laboratory, where people can find alternatives to the corner liquor store and what it offers, candy and junk food, is super important. And so we have people coming in like you, Adrienne, Feed Our Soul, that talk about nutrition. We have them coming in with workshops and just teaching them that there is a different way and that they have agency to do that. Especially at our school, I think one of the big concerns is mental health, anxiety and depression. And so gardening has been a great way, and having a garden has been a great way for kids to have an alternative space to go, a safe space, in our neighborhood. We have psychologists at our school, so they've used the garden. It's a It's a way for people to take a step back. So I think when we're talking about health, we also have to include mental health.
Yes, 100%. Which is so great, and it's leading to the next question is, since you all are doing this programming and focusing on physical health, nutrition, mental health, emotional health, right? Can you describe any specific moments or stories where you really see the positive benefit? As you said, Gigi, there are so many stressors to students and kids these days, where we are, you hear them, going through 10 times more things than we ever thought of. It's hard to be a teen and a kid now, with technology and social media, and just being it's a whole different level. And so how have you seen any benefits or any actual stories that you can tell us about the positive reactions of a student, working through your program? Sheila, do you have any thoughts on that? Okay.
I've had some kids where our best conversations have been right in the middle of the garden beds. And they, some of them talk about home life, and some of them talk about issues in school, bullying. And a lot of these conversations are one-on-one, but they're always held right there smack dab in the middle of the garden beds. Because I think that's a very peaceful place to talk. And I think it's serene, and it brings a calmness. So the child, in one particular case, we had a child, and bullying was one of the problems she was having in school. And so when we talked, it was funny because she said, "It's so peaceful here." And I said, "Yeah, that's what growing food is all about. It's peaceful. It's good for the body. And it just brings a calmness." And so I know that all of my one-on-one conversations has been right there in the middle of the garden bed. It helps the child with anxiety and the stressors that they may have even at home. And it just brings a calmness because as well as I do, when we're excited, we can't talk. Things don't come out right, because it just gets all jumbled. We have to sit back and just kind of relax before we can have a decent conversation if something has gone wrong in our lives. Because if we try to have that conversations when we're all pumped up, it just does not turn out well, So that's why in this particular case, this young lady, I thought it was best that, we talk amongst the plants and some of those plants that she planted. And that was 2 years ago. She's now 13. And the last gardening day we had, she asked me, she said, "Miss Sheila, is there anything I can do in the garden?" And I had her transplanting plants that had outgrew certain pots. And she really found joy in that, She said, "I like it because nobody's bothering me." And I said, "Okay." Well, she comes from a family of 9.
Yeah. It is loud and noisy. You never get any peace, with big
Yeah,
families.
yeah, exactly. And the new baby just came home about a week ago.
Oh my
Baby
God.
number 9.
Baby number 9.
Yes.
Wow. Man. But that's exactly what it really is, when we talk about kids, especially if we're targeting, South Central or Long Beach or San Fernando Valley, anywhere, where there is, a disparity in education, you really do see a very deep impact in the students when it comes to their emotional wellness, creating a safe space for them. As one of the commenters and participants said, creating that calmness, letting go of that anxiety and stress. Because we don't talk about mental health enough. We don't talk about, how nature can really facilitate that and how health can really help us cultivate that internal mental health and mental awareness. But yeah, Alexys, what about you? What are your thoughts about, do you have any any stories that you can describe about, seeing the mental and emotional benefits of a student working in your garden?
Yeah, so many. When I worked with Enrich LA, we were like, there's like 30,000 students in their program. It's insane. So the amount of benefits at this point I can see are like, we can't even calculate them. I had a fourth grader once. Her father passed away while she was at school. He was very ill for a long time, I think since she was in second grade. And but when she was in fourth grade, he died, and she was in the garden when she came, and they came to talk to her about it and tell her what happened. And my mom came to pick her up, and I asked the principal. I felt so ill-equipped, like, why are you telling her this in the garden in front of me? And like, and they were like, because this is her safe place. She likes to be here, so this is where we wanted to make sure she knew, because this is where she feels safe. And then she came back to school a few weeks later, and we planted a tree for her father, and it ended up being her tree that she cared for all the time, and all the kids knew about the tree, and it was a very special tree to the school community. But that was the first time I ever had a student really, that was probably 10 years ago, like really, I was able to see firsthand what safety looks like outside of like the home. And it was really cool that the garden had become this place in the community where people respected the space as well. So people didn't come in and like vandalize her father's tree, because this was a place that everyone felt comfortable and safe and respected. And it's still there. It's like, it's been planted for 11 years, I think now. And so that was probably one of my first experiences where I saw, and then I have a student now, she's a senior. I'm gonna be so devastated when she graduates in the summer, but she is my garden baby, and I think she's listening to this right now. And she has a lot of, I think, issues that are more typical to today's teenagers. Like we were sharing, like there's so many things they face, but she's also facing very specific things. Like she has parents who are undocumented, and she was learning at the going to this private school on a full scholarship, and she was around some of the wealthiest people in Los Angeles, and all the things that come with like navigating that as someone who's there on full scholarship with undocumented parents, and taking 2 buses and a train, all these different things that we know a lot of young people are doing to participate in programs like this. And but being able to see that, because the garden program fulfills her in some way, with safety, definitely with nutrients, because she does take food home, and she is an amazing cook, and she cooks food for us. It's also just become something that has become a part of her, and she didn't grow up doing this, that she came into this in high school. It's amazing because now she comes to Black Thumb Farm, and it takes her like over an hour to get here, but it just matters so much to her that she is willing to like make any of the sacrifices at 18 years old to be in a place that provides this for her. And it's been amazing too to see someone at that age, because I've been able to pour into her for years to be able to see what she does for her community. So she like works in the city council office, and she's like going to law school to become a immigration lawyer, and like just all these beautiful things. And I know so much of it comes from the garden being able to provide a space for her to, no pun intended, really bloom and blossom. Like she has been able to become her full self. And I think that matters a lot, because there are so many like neurological developments that happen with even just like the science behind human interactions with soil, and the things that happen to our brain when we connect to soil that are just like not even emotional, straight up scientifically based. But I think it's also really amazing to see how the garden can, over time, not just help them feel good, but become the best versions of themselves, even if they don't want to be gardeners or farmers. It allows people space to grow. And I think that that's kind of something that we really want to cultivate at Black Thumb, is like, this is a space where you come and you become a farmer, but you could become whatever you want, but this is a safe place for you to come, because now you've got skills and tools, but you know, she's a prime example of like, anybody can do anything.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I love that story. You know, in order for, you know, creating that space and showing that even something so detrimental and so tragic can happen, you know, but because, you know, they want to tell her in that space, you know, they want to make sure that she was, you know, around a space where she felt calm, you know, where she felt in control. You know, that's so beautiful. And yes, it does give you, you know, the power, you know, and inspire you to do whatever you want to do, you know, because there's nothing about understanding, you know, how to contribute to your own life and then how you can maybe make effective and waves into other people's lives. And that is, you know, the beauty of food and of sharing food and cooking food and growing food. You know, it's just so communal and so therapeutic in that way. You know, when you're talking about the science behind, you know, working with soil, you know, with your hands, you know, what that like scientifically does for your brain, and help in that productivity, you know, and even, you know, going out and being active in the garden and just being around that oxygen and breathing in fresh air, even taking 5-10 minutes and doing that before you enter a test, right? As a student, if you have, you know, a biology test coming out, even just taking that minute to just focus and tune in can really change, you know, so much about the outcomes of their education.
Totally, 100%.
So yeah, it's so important that we have these spaces. And Gigi, do you have any thoughts? I know that at Hawkins you work with some of the special ed students at Hawkins. So can you tell me a story about that, about how they have experienced and felt a difference in the Hawkins Greens Garden?
Yeah, I think that every school certainly should include the special needs students in a garden. When we first started and invited them in, it was a process. It took some time. And I think that gardening opens up people, nature opens people up. And so through the process, they really became engaged in the garden. They were good stewards. They had their favorite things to do, and also started being more interactive with other people. They started giving tours and, you know, interacting with other students. And so it just really, I think gardening brings people out. And so I was really pleased with how that went. They were looking forward to it every Friday. I get them communicating with me now, and they want to get back to the garden. They want to make sure that the garden is okay. So it's that sense of ownership, which I think I had seen them before just coming in and off of the bus. But one of the big things we try to do with all of our students is they have ownership in that space. People always say, well, what are you planting? We're planting whatever the students want to plant, because you were talking about nutrition. When they can take a plant from seed to harvest, they're more likely to eat those plants. And so we can be a little bit more creative with their diet. And also, I think it's been a great place for culture and narrative. We have students coming from all over the world. And so they're talking about their history. They're talking about what they ate, you know, back in the places where they were born. And so the idea is, well, then let's grow it, you know, let's grow it here. So it's been satisfying.
Absolutely. And that sense of, you know, connecting across borders, you know, is so important, just in understanding different cultures and understanding people. That was, you know, why, you know, we joke about this, but that's really why, you know, a lot of, you know, Europeans left, because they were looking for spices and they were looking for ways to like upgrade their food, you know, and
they got tired of the bland foods.
They did. They got a little tired of it, and they're like, we will risk hell and high water just to go that way to an unknown to look for spices, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that in itself, you know, just speaks to the power of food. It speaks to the power of what it is, you know, when you do nourish your own body and create, you know, ownership over your life, you know, saying like, hey, let's take care of this ground. You know, let's make sure that it is not only feeding myself, but it's also feeding others. Yes. Oh man, so many beautiful stories, so many great things. Thank you guys for sharing those. Really helps, you know, wrap teachers, you know, and minds heads around what the importance of outdoor learning is, right? And so now that we're in COVID-19 and we're in this kind of era of social distance learning, right? And trying to figure out what that looks like, and especially in the garden. And I think that, you know, gardeners, you know, now we have an advantage, you know, even it's kind of a leg up where we're like, hey, there's so much that you can learn about math, about science, about health, about wellness, all in this one gardening and farming space, right? So what do you think that schools can implement now in order for them to incorporate more outdoor learning? Because it seems like we may be in these social distance policies for at least a school year, if not maybe two. And so how do we, you know, help students learn, whether they're learning at home or whether they're, you know, coming to school twice a week, whether teachers are trying to incorporate it through a virtual space? You know, how do we incorporate outdoor learning, you know, with this new way of life that we have now? Sheila, do you have any thoughts about, you know, what Adventures to Dreams can implement in that space?
Actually, I do. And before the Long Beach Unified School District superintendent left this year, he had planned on retiring this year anyway, but I know he wasn't expecting the pandemic to hit and schools being closed. I know that was a shocker for him to leave out like that. But myself and my assistant had a meeting with him in October about changing certain things in the school, and one was outside learning. That was in October. And so since then, we do have a new superintendent, and I am trying to see how I can have a conversation with her. My feelings are really going out to all the kids, but especially my kindergartners and my first graders. This learning, the new learning that they have for them. Kindergarten, as well as pre-K, is when you're really learning those social development skills. And now that's just been cut off. And so what I want to do is have a meeting with her, because the space that I have now is a park. And we grow food there. And it's not like your usual park, it's just vacant land. It's 10,000 square feet. So what I want to introduce to her is about having these classes there for the kindergartners and first grade. It is enough room to social distance. We did it. We just completed our summer cooking camp, and we had 25 kids, and some of them actually were from South Central that came. And we social distanced, we took temps. We wore our mask, of course, and everybody was good. You know, the only time they didn't wear their masks, of course, is when they were, you know, eating and running, because there's enough space to run. And that was really my highlight of the day, to just see them being kids. You know, you don't get to do that if you're in an apartment. You know, it's just hard to be able to do that. But nevertheless, it is my goal to speak to her and see what we could do about transitioning, because I don't know in LA Unified, but in Long Beach, the kindergartners go half day. So I think it would be a good experience for them to be out amongst plants and nature, and the teachers hold classrooms right there in the garden setting. I think that would be great. So I'm really going to try to connect with her, because they're saying, I guess, they're going to try out going back to school in the classrooms in October, and I guess that depends on the numbers. But I'd like to speak to her to, you know, maybe just give it a try, because a lot of schools in other states are actually doing that. They're holding the classrooms outside. So I think it's doable, but I just think it's you have to be persistent. I have found that out. You have to really be persistent when you have an idea. And so somebody will say, okay, I mean, the way the way I met the superintendent that just retired, I went to an engagement where he was speaking, and I kept raising my hand, and finally the person in charge, well, because of the superintendent, he recognized me. I just happened to be the only African American in there, and I kept getting ignored. And that wasn't a good feeling, but you know, when finally my hand went up the last time, the gentleman actually picked someone across the room, and the superintendent said, no, that lady back there, she's been raising her hand, and let's see what she has to say. So he heard me out. And then the next thing I knew, someone came up to me and said he'd like to have a one-on-one meeting with you. So it was something I said that, you know, wanted him to speak to me, you know, in an office setting, you know. So hopefully I'll have that same rapport with the new superintendent, and she'll hear what I have to say. But I think it's doable. I think it can happen. You know, in everybody's program that we have here, we could actually have that happen. And I think it would be a good thing for all the kids, you know, to just be outside during the whole learning period. Can you imagine what that would be like? You know, instead of the short recesses and then you're back in the classroom. I think it would be.
What could that really do, you know, to a mind and awaken all parts and aspects of it? You know, that's incredible that, you know, that we talk about persistence, right? And I feel now is the time, you know, where we really do have to fight for our youth and fight for them and our adults, you know, and our seniors, and just so that they know, you know, that what there's such an impact and such a deep impact on what the outdoors and really nature and the environment can really do for all of your senses, including your mind, and the importance of that, you know, when you're learning, you know, as a child, as an adolescent, as you grow through those very crucial years where your mind is developing so quickly, you know, there has to be really more emphasis on that, and not enough emphasis on that. And you're talking about your kindergarten, first graders, you know, I think about that, you know, because those are the years where there's only so much you can teach through a book. You really have to have that exploratory learning, you know, where they're incorporating all their senses so that they can then learn how to communicate it, and they learn language and bring that into play. So yes, but on the other end, you know, Gigi, you work with high schoolers, and you work with, you know, so how does that really come to play in terms of social distancing and social distance learning? Because now, you know, I get worried about the high schoolers, right, who are trying to learn AP chemistry and biology, you know, through a computer. And I just imagine that it can be just so difficult, you know, and so time consuming. And so because the garden is so important at Hawkins, and how I've seen it really impact the community, you know, how do you think that we can incorporate outdoor learning, or more outdoor learning, or a virtual way to encourage kids to get more outdoors through this social distance, you know, learning period?
Well, that's a great question. As you know, Adrienne, we always did outside learning. We had teachers who would give classes in the garden. We did that pre-COVID. And so what I'm finding, what we're doing this year is we're doing Grow Kits. And so STEAM is in the garden, everything from math, you know, of course, to science and art, and even music. We have these little shakers from the trees. And so there's music that you can actually do with that. So what's really exciting are teachers that are trying to get students outside again, collecting specimens, and then they talk with each other about their experience in growing and what they're finding. So it's helping them socialize better, and it's more interesting than looking at a screen for an hour. I mean, our teachers are beautiful, of course, but being able to get outside and then taking ownership of their learning, and being a part of it, that kind of interactive experience, I think is pretty exciting this year. And we're working with the Huntington Botanical Gardens to have a mini botanical gardens. And what a vibrant space for students to have class than in a space like that. And for teachers, it would make it more interesting, right? Than just 4 blank walls, you know, in a room. So we're just looking for ways for them to interact. And even with the Student Garden Club, they're going to pick a project. We're going to do a grow kit, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But the main thing is I think last year we really had a problem with engagement. And so we want to make it just a vibrant online space for learning.
Yes. Oh my God. And it's going to be so important, you know, at least these next 2 years of students and you know, that are incorporating, you know, learning into their new, and teachers, you know, helping teachers know that, you know, there is a way how you can teach English outside, you know, there's a way how you can teach math and science outside, and not only turning to technology and only turning to books, but just looking at the beauty of nature and what that's the original science right there, you know. So Alexys, do you have any thoughts about your policies and social distance learning and what's happening now?
I have so many thoughts, so I'm gonna try really hard to keep them concise. I have so many thoughts on this. Okay, so I was teaching gardening full time last semester when we went into social distance learning, and I actually taught online classes from March till June, and yeah, so I've got some experience with like teaching gardening classes online. Yeah. So some of them, we did like some classes from the garden where we would talk about like, look at how these plants are transforming. Let's talk about like stages. Let's talk about whatever. And they could see plants that they were already kind of accustomed to seeing because they were used to that space. Some of these plants they had planted, so they were seeing kind of them come into fruition. But one of the main things we focused on was teaching in the kitchen. We figured that if you need to stay excited about food, then let's connect you to food. And what better way than to start to talk to you about like nutrition, about the origins, about the cultures of the foods that you have in your house. And let's start to utilize that. So I went from teaching like, you know, heavy sciences. I also taught all of my 11th and 12th grade classes are focused on food injustice. So we talked a lot about like food injustice, which is easy to teach at home online because there's tons of videos. We had guest speakers come in from all over the place who actually like fight in food injustices and are activists. And that's another thing I would push teachers, like if you can have guest teachers. It's exciting and interesting to look at somebody new. And sometimes when you say the same thing over and over, they stop listening. So it was cool to have someone else say exactly what I was already saying. And then they're like, this is what a great novel idea. Like, I know, right? It's crazy. Like, you know, I've never heard it before. But then another thing we did, so the cooking was really awesome. And I would teach them like basic meals, like let's learn how to make rice correctly. And let's learn how to like utilize the spices and seasonings. And where do these spices and seasoning come from? Where's onion powder come from? How do they make onion powder? All right, let's go get an onion. Let's talk about how we make this. Let's dehydrate an onion and make our own onion powder. Now we're spicing our rice. Like we went through cooking lessons like that. And it was cool because I tried to keep them as basic as possible. So I was able to teach like 7th through 12th grade, 5th through 12th grade. And it be very practical and hands-on for them still, and still keep them interested in food and still keep them interested in where this food's coming from so that they know like when we get back to the garden, we're going to grow this. And even if you wanted to like show a quick video of like, this is how this grows. This is the family of food this comes from. Okay, so that's one. Another thing we did was growing food in your apartment or your home from scraps. That was a big thing we did because I know it was very difficult to figure out like, how are we going to get these kids soil? How are we going to get these kids seeds? Like we just got to put that off the table. If you can do that, like if you're a full-time garden teacher, that's possibly doable. You know, you could drive house to house and deliver this to your kids or have them come pick it up. But if you're an educator and you're not a garden teacher, but you're trying to implement garden education in your curriculum, one of the easiest ways to do that is to teach your kids how to regrow from food scraps. So we did lettuce, we did onions, we did spring onions, let's harvest seeds from some of our overripe fruits. Like, so they were growing foods in their windowsills and outside on their balconies, and some of them who have backyards in their yards, but they were utilizing things they already had. So that was also a way for us to teach, like, this is how you take back your health. This is how you grow your own food from what you already have. You know, I think it's difficult with children and with young people, and even with like adults, 19, 20, 21, for them to feel like they can grow food at home alone without you when they're used to doing it with you. But one of the cool ways to show them was like regrow these from scraps, and you know, and it was so fun. We would do like weekly updates. We named our plants, like grown from avocado pits. Everybody name your avocado pit. And that we're talking,
Yes.
we're having class and they're like, look at Raymond. And Felicia's so happy. Like, it was so fun.
I'm telling you, the names will really, that'll plant it in their mind. If you give them names, they understand. It somehow has energy. Yeah, and they remember, right?
Yeah, all of a sudden they're like taking care of plants. Their mom's like, oh, they've had a dead pothos in their room for 6 years. And I'm like, well, you know, they should have named it. So that is one way that's like very easy to do that. So I would say like cooking, starting from like food scraps. And then the other thing we started to do was really like making crafts from materials, plant materials. So we would do like food dyes with like avocado skins, onion skins. We would do sugar scrubs. We all made sugar scrubs for like around Mother's Day in May. And we made them for our moms, and we all like seasoned them differently. We just used oil, sugar, and then whatever else you had. So cinnamon sugar scrubs, vanilla sugar scrubs, whatever we had in the house.
I love that.
But yeah, I feel very strongly about like, obviously we want to get kids outside, you know, we do. And that is what is best for them. There's no argument. It is best for them to be outside. What I try to figure out how to do is be like large picture. Like I love what Sheila's talking about with like talking to people like in the Long Beach school district. Like that's big picture. What's gonna like radically change is like, you got to get these people on board. And then the small picture is like, okay, what do I do right now? Okay, so I get these kids to figure out how to like dehydrate plants in their toaster oven, and I get these kids how to figure out how to grow lettuce from the lettuce they already have at home. To keep them invested so that there's not a gap. We all know what happens in the summertime. Everybody in education knows what happens. You know, you teach them the Pythagorean theorem, and they come back and they're like, I don't even know how to spell theorem. You know, they forget so much, and they're not constantly feeding, and that's real. It's called the slide. We all know that in education. So I think it's vital, if they can't physically be in the garden, to keep them invested in gardening things with what they already have at home, so that this becomes a part of their life. This becomes something that is like culturally happening in their home all the time. And it doesn't have to happen with everybody in their family. That's also one of the difficult things with working with kids, is that, you know, I always found when I worked with kids in elementary school, like I could teach them all these things about plants, and then they go home and their parents buy them Cheetos and Capri Suns. And I'm like, you know, our kids come to the garden and they love carrots and they eat apples and they will eat rutabaga, you know, but then they go home, if that's not what's being purchased, it's difficult for them to make those choices because they're young, and they sometimes just, they literally can't because they're not purchasing groceries. But if we can make this something that they culturally like love to do and make it accessible to them, I feel like that's where the like shift starts to happen. So those are some of my concise thoughts.
Yes.
And with Black Thumb, because we don't work with the school system, which is also why I specifically, and not to knock school districts at all or anything, but I worked with schools all until June. June was the last time I stopped working for schools, just because I found that if anything happens, I'm always going to have to follow their rules and their jurisdictions. So with Black Thumb Farm, we have figured out like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. And so we are open. You know, we social distance, we cap at 8 people at a time. We don't have a ton of kids in, and our program starts October 6th, and our fellowship interns come in a couple weeks, and we will be growing food for our community no matter what. We will be outdoors as long as they sign their waivers and their parents are signing their permission slips and everybody gets their contracts in. We'll continue to do that. And somebody asked a question. Can I answer that? Somebody sent one.
Yes, I was gonna say if you wanted to jump in, we're gonna jump into Q&A, you know, really quickly for these last few minutes. But thank you everyone for all your comments, conversations. But yes, feel free to answer if you see this question, and feel free to go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I with as far as like how we connect with schools, I'm old school. I like to do everything in person. I like to be the person that knows everybody, so that if we ever need to connect, so I will go to the heads of the biology departments at different high schools that are close to Black Thumb Farm. As I said, everybody in my family works in education, so that kind of helps because I have my brother's a teacher at our neighboring school and things like that. And then I utilize all these Instagram platforms. Instagram is the greatest thing to happen this year, okay? Because it has kept us very informed. And so I reach out to like, whatever, Kennedy High School is nearby us. Okay, so I found a biology teacher and a chemistry teacher from Kennedy High School on Instagram to figure out, do you have any kids interested in farming who want to come to our program? I just found them on Instagram. So I can utilize resources like online, also when the school's open, knocking on doors.
Amazing.
I love
That's
that.
so incredible. And I feel what you were saying about the students, having to connect them, with something that happens outdoors, even if it's outside of the school district, because it's hard for teachers, to get that space and leeway to do whatever they want, right? Because LUSD,
Totally.
Long Beach Unified, School District, they have their curriculum. They have to hit these certain boundaries and thoughts, to be able to move to the next level. And I think that the education system is breaking down to begin with. I think that COVID has really broken down, what is the importance of these standardized tests, or what are really the things that people need, or students really need to learn at an early age, and bringing back those essential needs like life budgeting, like home ec, like gardening, these kind of life skills. And yes, computers and technology, of course, are totally important as well. And understanding the environment, but like, to what extent, do we have to beat down chemistry down everybody's throats? Or do we just do chemistry 1, you get that, and then you can choose whatever you want to do later in life.
Yeah, for real. Yes, well said. Yes.
Because and I want to as our last question as we wrap up, but I want to really pose, first of all, thank everyone for being such lights and really paving the way in urban agriculture and in the educational space, and really understanding what that impact can do for our students. But being, a BIPOC farmer, that's a new trend word now that's going out around, Black and Indigenous people of color, farmers, what do you believe are the next steps for us for passing this torch on to the next generation of urban agriculture? What are some key things that we can do today for our communities to then take that next step? Is it land ownership, right? Is it food entrepreneurship, and learning how do we contribute to our community in that space? Or is it mental health, and just incorporating outdoor learning? What are some next steps that we can do as a community so that we can keep moving forward in this positive aspect? So Gigi, I'm gonna toss it over to you and see what do you think?
Okay, I think those are great questions. I don't think we have to have one or the other. I say yes to all of the above. And I think the full circle, I think the full circle moment for us, especially in high school, is that we're having students that are older and that can go out and take what they learn and turn it into something out in the community. And I wanted to just do a shout out to Cameron. She was one of our graduating seniors who's at a UC campus. And what she is doing now is she wants to start green spaces and gardens throughout South Central LA. So even though she's going to school in Berkeley, she wants to bring it back home. That's what she has been concentrating on during COVID. And so, Adrienne, as you know, if what we are doing really has meaning, then we're going to see replications of that. We're going to see students taking ownership for that. And that's a good example of that happening. And Tex, who wanted to go into the tea business. So we now have a tea bed at school that's just strictly for teas. And so a lot of the graduating students from the Student Garden Club said they wanted to come back and help. That's one of the unique things about our school, is that the students don't leave, is that they mentor the generations that are after them. And so they want to come back and help. So I think two of the strong things that we're doing is creating more green spaces in South Central that are very much needed. Where green spaces are, crime goes down. And also entrepreneurship is a big thing, because we want people to have sustainable lives. And you can do that with gardening. And just certainly I think the great thing is just people have reconnected with the earth. I had so many students say, oh, this strawberry tastes so much better than the grocery store. Or if they smell a sprig of lemon, oh, this is so much better than the spray. Of course it is. And so it's just all a process. I had a student who took some herbs and sprinkled them in her hot Cheetos. Well, she was eating the hot Cheetos, but she had some herbs in there. So, you have to You have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, gardening really is freedom. It's freedom. And it's also a way, it's a meditative way to manage stress, depression, and anxiety. And I've seen time and time again, our students just quietly going around that process of either watering or gardening or putting their hands in the soil and just reconnecting to nature. And that can happen in a city, because I think urban gardening has unique challenges, but it also has fantastic opportunities. And so what we do is we don't want to just have a garden that stays at the school. We always say it's from the garden and beyond. And so just to have that connection out in the community, we now have, Hawkins Green has a community fridge at 66th in Vermont in the corner bodega. And so the things that we grow and that other growers are growing, they're dropping off at that refrigerator to feed the community. And that students will be starting that process is powerful. It's empowering. And so I'm so proud of them and looking forward to what can happen. And I thank you so much, Adrienne, for coming to our school. The great thing about our school is we have really connected with the best in the community, like you coming and teaching our students, and every weekend the Student Garden Club, and exposing them to nutrition and health and gardening and planting. And we did not only, we just wanted to do all of it. We had hydroponics, we gardened in soil, and then our next thing that COVID didn't interrupt was aquaponics, right? Because we just wanted them to know, just from A to Z, all of the possibilities.
Yes. And you're leading the way. You know, it's such a forefront there at Hawkins, and I love coming there. I love working with the students, and I thank you so much for inviting me into your world and being a part of Hawkins Dreams, and being really able to connect with high schoolers. I think is really was such a great age range to really start and work with the program. So, and I love that they love the hydroponics. The teachers love them. You know, the garden is getting so much, you know, praise, you know, even through this time. It's still something that, you know, is looked at as beautifying the community, and also the campus, and also, you know, teaching the community, the teachers, and the Hawkins community, you know, different ways to educate. So, you know, kudos to you, Gigi, for even just starting that process, and being a forefront in that, because, you know, Gigi does it on her own. She is out there doing it.
You're not on.
Just the last thing I'd like to say is how public education gets better is when community gets involved. This year we're working with Ambiguous_Digs, who has a mobile greenery. And so he is supplying, yes, a mobile greenery at Ambiguous_Digs. And so, you know, when we think about entrepreneurships and creative ways to have entrepreneurships, we have really been lucky in having community come in. Public school is a place that anybody that crosses that threshold can be guaranteed an education. And if you feel that that can be improved, then get involved. Yeah. You know, that's what I do, that's what you do, that's what all these great people that have wrapped around these kids do, and they appreciate that. You know, it takes that investment and that commitment and that time. And it's profitable for everyone.
Yes, it is possible. I think that is the biggest thing, you know, that I want to, you know, have people understand, is that it's possible for you to do it. If anyone can really learn how to garden, it just does take more time and constant and commitment to that living thing. But I think there's something beautiful about working outside of yourself and creating an energy that then ripples throughout the world. Not only, and then a bonus factor is that it can actually be nutrients for myself and for others. That's just the beauty of plants, and the beauty of vegetables, you know, as well. So, you know, thank you so much for that. And I want to pass off to Sheila. Let's see how you feel about, you know, the next steps in passing this torch. You know, you're doing so many great things with Adventures of Dreams, and teaching students that they can really put their mind to anything. So what are the next steps and goals for you?
Basically, to get more community involvement, because we just acquired as soon as I signed the lease for the space, and the pandemic hit. So The first activity we had basically was building 8 garden beds, and we had 25 volunteers to come out. And Alexys, is that how you pronounce your name? Yes. You were right about IG, because when I went on that Instagram, they started giving me direct messages like, yeah, I want to come help. I want to come help. So yes, that is a great platform. So we built 8 garden beds in one day. And since then, a parent actually had her birthday celebration there. And instead of a big party, she asked her friends to come and build 4 garden beds with her. So they came out and built garden beds. And I like where we're at, like I said, it's pretty spacious, but not getting off the point. But I was able to cook for them, and so they got to eat. And so it was a great evening. It was really nice. So I think getting community involvement, and especially your younger ones that have brothers and sisters older than them, just getting the whole family involved. I do have 3 families. Everybody, all the kids and the parents come. So with that, you can pass that torch, because you see a connection of what you're doing is affecting them and their lifestyle and how they want to eat differently. So I definitely believe in community involvement and parent involvement with their kids, because it can turn out to be a really great thing.
Yes, parent involvement and community involvement too. But parent involvement is key, you know, especially as you were talking. You and Alexys, you also touched on this, is, you know, getting the parents really involved in what the students are learning. You know, like if they are doing gardening club and they do come home with a recipe, you know, that you want, and your kid says, hey mom, like, let's go buy some fruits and vegetables, like hoping that inspires the parents to then say like, oh my gosh, I've never tasted cauliflower in my life, but my kid wanted it. So we took it, they cooked this recipe, we try it at home. And now look, now we buy cauliflower maybe once a month, you know, just to throw in some veggies, you know, but it's creating that ripple effect, right? So that if we start with the youth, you know, then hopefully it will affect our parents and grandparents and our seniors, you know, as time moves on, because food is the key, you know, really to youth and mobility, and, you know, to reducing risk and illness. You know, so it's such a benefit to so many things, in so many ways. But Alexys, I want to let you jump in and let us a little bit know last things about what Black Thumb Farm is doing, and how they are, you know, going to help with the next steps in passing the torch and cultivating farming practices.
Yes. Okay. So I think the big thing for Black Thumb Farm to just, I guess, secure the future is to make sure that, you know, like in a fantasy world, in my fantasy world, probably not everybody's, but my fantasy world, every student that comes through my program starts off with like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, and they leave my program like, no, I just want to be a farmer. That would be my dream, right? I know realistically though, most of them come through and are like, I want to be a doctor, and they leave like, I'm gonna be a doctor. So what I need to make sure, I feel my responsibility to them is to make sure that when the time comes for them to grow their own food, feed their families, feed themselves, they know how to do that. And I think that the skill set, I think is in this present moment, in my opinion, is the most important thing, is to make sure that they have the know-how. Because I think in my career, I've found that it's such a nice idea. I think everybody thinks gardening and eating healthy is a nice idea. But I think you mentioned in the beginning, Adrienne, like so many people don't even know how to utilize the produce that they have access to. So when you can provide them with a skill set, it changes everything. I mean, me learning how to use bell peppers from my father at 15 makes so that my 2-year-old eats bell peppers, right? My 1-year-old eats bell peppers. Like that is a thing that most 2-year-olds and 1-year-olds are not eating. Definitely not in my community and definitely not in our culture. But it's a thing that someone instilled in me and I was able to instill in my children when I was young and didn't think it was important or care about it. So I think giving them actual skill sets and practical tools that they can utilize is incredibly important. as well as definitely nurturing a love and an appreciation for nature, but giving them something that you're like, well, here's how you can do that. You know, you love hiking, cool. You love being outside, awesome. You like growing food, great. What do you do with all of that? Here's what you can do with that. And I think that's what we're here to do at Black Thumb. We're here to make sure we give our kids like legit skill sets and resources. So when they walk away, they're like, I have a know-how. I have a know-how that I can practically use. And to answer your question about like what's next for the future, I'm really big on like land ownership right now. I have been talking a lot to Open Silo and I just got off the phone with the head of Cal State LA's farming department, which is brand new and just getting started, talking about like how land access changes everything. I think all of us love and maybe even worship a little Leah Penniman from Soulfire Farm in New York. I know. I love her so much. I've never met her, and I love her so much. And who wrote Farming While Black. And one of the biggest reasons she was able to do so many amazing things is because she owns her space. She doesn't have to follow what anyone says besides like the state laws, of course, with what you can do with your land, because she has ownership. And I think that in Los Angeles, and specifically for people of color, that has been something that's lacked for a long time, is being able to have the power to really empower our people. And it comes from like, well, we always have someone to answer to. And once you have that ownership, you know, you can do right by your people, including your very young, and your families. I love what Sheila was talking about with like making sure you provide for the families and the intergenerational aspect of it. I did the edible schoolyard training a couple of years ago, and that was the biggest thing I learned, was like they had cooking nights on Friday nights, and they would have like grandma, mom, and the kids, and then the little siblings, and they all cooked together these recipes, and they all did it all together. And it was like, that's change right there. That's changing a community. That's changing a culture. That's real effective change. So the intergenerational, of course, but my Black Thumb Farm, what we really do is to give skill sets so that our kids have a know-how. Oh, Adrienne, you're muted still.
Thank you.
I could read your lips though. I could read it.
I appreciate it. I was just talking, you know, but yeah, you know, all those things that you said, you know, and also just helping with creating an energy, you know, and passing that energy on, and tradition, right? And helping those traditional cultural recipes or, you know, way that we grow food, cook food, you know, impact, you know, Black Americans, you know, Hispanic Americans, you know, indigenous people here, because that was what we were doing. That's what we've done. That's how we built this country. That's how we made our life, you know, is through this gardening practices,
right?
And through this agriculture and land ownership, on top of plus food entrepreneurship, plus, you know, just, you know, access and, you know, dissipating these food deserts here. We need all of these things. Totally. We need all of these things in order for our community to then really rise up and thrive and in the way that we need it to be. But I want to just say thank you guys so much. This has been such an incredible talk and such an incredible conversation. I do want to put this up really quickly so that everyone knows that we are here. And thank you guys so much for joining us for our Black Farmers Roundtable, the education edition. I want you to please check out all of these amazing organizations. If you know what we're talking about, then the best thing for right now is you see that we're all doing so many projects and doing amazing things. So trying to get urban farming spaces, you know, and including that, you know, community engagement. So I say follow them, you know, share them, donate to them if you can, check out their websites, look at their programs. You know, everyone is doing such incredible things here for the community, so that we can then take our education and our urban agriculture to the next level, so that we can keep feeding, you know, keep planting, keep growing, you know, as people, and then, you know, only better things are yet to come. So thank you again, ladies. Thank you so much. This was incredible. You guys are all doing amazing things. Best of luck to you all, and Godspeed. And we hope to have another one of these again. special shout out to our sponsor, Meredith McKenzie of the Urban Rancho Group for sponsoring this Black Farmers Roundtable. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for everyone for joining in. And we will talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Take care, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.